She called the police on me for parking in my own driveway. It was 6:47 in the morning when two patrol cars rolled up, lights flashing, my mud-caked F-250 sitting squarely on my concrete pad, completely on my land. And there stood Connie Rettel, arms folded, wearing that smug grin like she'd already declared victory. The moment she pointed at me and barked, "I pay your salary. Arrest him," I knew this had nothing to do with scenery or vehicles. This was a power play, small-town tyranny in full bloom. What she hadn't accounted for was who she was trying to bully. I'm a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. 23 years dealing with real threats, not self-appointed Choe monarchs. So tell me, what would you have done? Share your stories. And where are you tuning in from? I want to know who else is battling neighborhood dictators. Let me back up. I'm Vance Hartwick, Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Army Intelligence. 23 years active duty. I just moved to reserve status 1 week in a month after a lifetime of packing up every year and a half, living on bases, waking to mortars instead of alarm clocks. I finally bought land of my own. 4 acres in Pinewood Estates, Colorado. Trees, silence, breathing room. My wife, Marina, an ICU nurse tougher than most soldiers I've led, loved it. Our son was at West Point, our daughter studying engineering at CU Boulder. This was meant to be our calm chapter. My routine was simple. Coffee from a steel percolator, porch at sunrise, the crunch of frost under my boots, pine in the air, diesel from my truck. No sandstorms, no burning oil. Peace. It lasted 8 weeks. Pinewood Estates is a pocket of 47 homes tucked outside Colorado Springs, mostly retirees and young families. Voluntary, no legal authority, just folks who like potlucks and debates over mailbox colors. Except for Connie, 52, vice president of this voluntary committee. Married to Garrett, a real estate attorney never seen at home. No kids. They live in the biggest corner lot house with a chemically engineered lawn that smells like a science lab. She patrols at night in heels, click, 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 like counting down to detonation. She hides behind property values and community standards, but anyone listening closely can hear the translation. Transient renters, that's the Hispanic family 3 doors down. Clutter, that's the veteran's work van parked on the street. You get the picture. 2 weeks after we moved in, she showed up with a welcome packet, smile plastered on. She'd highlighted a section. Vehicles over 6,000 pounds must be garaged or behind a fence. My truck is 6,400 pounds. I looked up, she was still smiling. Just a courtesy reminder. We like to keep things tidy. I nodded, shut the door. Marina, watching from the kitchen, said, "That woman's going to be a problem." I tried optimism. She gave me the look, the one that says, "You're underestimating this war." 12 weeks in, I returned from drill, covered head to toe in mud. Field exercises. 0 sleep. Truck looked like it had clawed through a battlefield. I parked it on my concrete pad, well within my property, and planned to wash it later. Sunday morning, 7 a.m., she knocked. I opened mid-sip of coffee. "That truck needs to move. It's an eyesore." Calmly, I said, "It's on my property. I'll clean it later." Her face flushed deep red. "We'll see about that." Heels double-timed away. Marina called. "Told you." She was right. Monday morning, 6:45. I'm pouring second coffee when I see the red and blue lights. 2 sheriff units creeping up. Connie on the sidewalk, pointing like she's calling in artillery. That's when things really began. The deputies stepped out, young, professional, mid-30s. One, name badge Kraus, glanced at my Army decal, then my PT shirt. I saw his posture ease. He approached. "Morning, sir." "Got a call about a vehicle blocking access." He looked at the wide-open street, then at me with that expression. "She's wasting our time." "On my own driveway," I said. He walked the line, visually measured distance, checked the pad. Turned to Connie. "Ma'am, the vehicle is entirely on private property. There's no violation." Her voice cut through the air. "I want a report filed. He's violating covenants. He refuses to comply." Kraus returned, forced professionalism. "We'll mark it unfounded, sir. Have a good day." He handed me the incident card and left. As they drove away, that familiar twitch of adrenaline crawled up my neck, the same feeling before intel briefings when things were about to escalate. That evening, I got an email from HOA President Dale Peton, 68, retired insurance adjuster, the type to apologize for breathing too loud. Subject: courtesy reminder, vehicle placement. All corporate fluff about aesthetics and voluntary compliance. CC to all 18 households on the street. Marina read it over my shoulder. She's building a paper trail. She was right again. I replied all factual, cited my survey, county records, attached my plat map. For a minute, with the scent of chamomile and wood smoke drifting in, I allowed myself to believe it might end there. It didn't. Next morning, I found an orange traffic cone at the end of my driveway. Not mine. I checked footage. 11 p.m., silver Lexus. Passenger door opens. Garrett Reddle steps out, places the cone, leaves. Took 40 seconds. I carried it 3 houses down, set it on Connie's immaculate porch with a note. Believe you dropped this at V. Walking back, Marina saw me. You're poking the bear. Bear poked first, I said. That afternoon, a county code enforcement truck pulled in. Out stepped Raul Espinoza, mid-40s, county polo, the look of a man who's mediated every petty feud imaginable. Got a complaint about unpermitted grading. I shook my head. Nothing touched since purchase. He walked my boundary, checked drainage, slopes, returned shaking his head. 5th bogus call from this street this month. Someone's got too much free time. I offered coffee. We stood on my porch while he vented. Then he leaned in. For $15, you can request a county property inspection record. Shows every complaint ever filed. Some guys use it to prove harassment if they need to lawyer up. He scribbled the number on his card. I filed a request that afternoon. Best $15 I've ever spent. I had no idea how crucial that piece of paper would be, or how ugly things were about to get. 3 days later, strange cars started creeping past, slowing to eyeball my property like they were casing it. Connie was circulating a petition, Voluntary Covenant Enforcement Initiative, door to door, selling it as protecting property values. She carried appraisal data, blaming price dips on commercial vehicles and improper maintenance, code for my truck and the veteran's work van down the road. By week's end, she had 11 signatures out of 47, mostly retirees nodding while she smiled and sold fear. Then came the anonymous letter. No return address. Times New Roman, military types think they're above rules. Sell and move to base housing where you belong. Marina found it in the mailbox, confusion turning to volcanic anger in 3 seconds. I held it to the light, faint lavender scent. Connie's signature perfume. Marina had once said it smelled like a funeral home. Now here it was on a thread in my hand. I slid it into a sleeve and filed it, right behind the cone photo and the code complaint. The following Tuesday, Marina came home from a night shift at the ICU, shaking with a rage I hadn't seen in years. She'd gotten a parking ticket during her shift, legally parked, in a zone that lifted at 6 p.m. She fought it. Got it thrown out in 2 days. But fighting that after losing 2 patients in 12 hours broke something in her. Then 3 days later, her hospital received an anonymous call accusing a night shift ICU nurse of coming to work drunk. They described her car, her shift, her unit. Policy forced an investigation. She had to leave the floor, get tested, be questioned. She was cleared within hours. But when she came home, still in scrubs, she stood in our kitchen, tears streaming down her face. And that's when I understood this wasn't about a truck anymore. This was war. She went after my job, Vance, Marina said softly. She phoned my hospital, trying to get me fired. I felt my jaw clamp, the look I get when decisions have to be made, and Marina saw it immediately. She knew that switch from husband to operator, the same one I flipped before deployments. I need to make some calls, I told her. She nodded, poured tea, and said, burn her down. I rang Captain Lynette Torin, an old JAG contact who'd helped with a landlord fight 2 years earlier. Lynette answered on the second ring, listened without interrupting, and then laid out the options. First, our neighbor was an idiot. Second, making false reports to your spouse's employer is tortious interference. You could sue until the cows came home. Her practical counsel, though, was simpler. Document everything and create an official trail. File a harassment report with the sheriff, even if nothing immediate happens. Courts love timelines. If the woman escalated, having dated proof of a pattern would be invaluable. I filed a report the next morning with Deputy Kraus, the same officer from the driveway incident, and this time he treated it seriously, took notes, and flagged it in their system. Lynette also mentioned something I hadn't thought of: Colorado nonprofits, including HOAs, must make financial records public. It was cheap, around $50, and took a couple of weeks. Board members sometimes funnel association money to themselves, and if there was anything funky in the books, that could be leverage. I paid the fee that afternoon, felt like buying body armor before my first deployment, and had no idea how messy Connie's accounting would be. 2 weeks later, Connie called an emergency HOA meeting, forcing Dale to send notice with only 24 hours warning, so most people couldn't attend. 19 neighbors showed up anyway, curious and annoyed, to an agenda that was purposefully vague: discuss enforcement mechanisms. Connie brought a full slideshow, photos of my truck, shots of my survey stakes, even images of my security cameras, and pitched $100 voluntary fines per violation and hiring private security for about $40 a month per household. I sat in the back, arms folded, equal parts irritated and morbidly impressed by the pettiness. Halfway through, Marcus Tillman, a postal worker in his 50s who lives down the street, spoke up and called it out as personal. Connie's answer, "People like him don't respect standards," landed like a grenade. The room chilled. Dale tried to save face and table the discussion. As folks left, Connie called out loud enough for everyone to hear, "You think you're untouchable?" I smiled, nodded, and stepped outside into the evening air. That night, Marina and I dug into the HOA financial packet that had arrived 3 days earlier. 18 months of expenses stapled together, sloppy and vague. It didn't take long to spot red flags: $8,400 in ambiguous administrative charges and a $1,200 payment to Garrett's law firm for covenant review, basically paying her husband for work he should have done as a board member. Marina, who manages tight ICU budgets, circled suspicious lines in red. Nonprofits can't give financial benefit to board members or their families without disclosure and a vote. There was no record of either in Dale's posted minutes. I picked up enough nonprofit law overseas to know this could get people removed or prosecuted, but I wanted Colorado-specific confirmation. A quick search validated Marina's instincts. Benefits to board members require disclosure and a conflict of interest vote. None existed. The next morning, Marcus stopped me at the mailbox and unloaded. Connie had pushed 3 families out before, he said, complaints that always hit the same targets, never the white folks. She'd called animal control on the Hispanic family, reported the veteran's van as abandoned repeatedly, and lodged bogus noise complaints against Marcus himself. "If you're building something to push back," he said, "count me in." I shook his hand and promised to stay in touch. As I walked away, I could hear Connie yelling on the phone about the military troublemaker, which made me smile. She was rattled. People like her live for control. When it slips, they panic and make mistakes. I plan to let that happen. Unable to sleep, I went back downstairs at 2 a.m., laptop open, combing public records the way I used to comb and tell. Property records, tax liens, court filings. I pulled up Connie and Garrett's file and froze. $47,000 in unpaid tax liens going back 2 years. Foreclosure paused by a hardship application 6 months prior. Court records showed Garrett's law firm had paid a $230,000 malpractice settlement 8 months earlier. Suddenly, Connie's obsession made sense. She wasn't protecting property values. She was terrified her financial collapse would expose her. Her harassment was projection and self-preservation. Marina came down in a robe, saw my mission face, and read what I'd found. "She's broke," I said. "The house is underwater. Garrett's firm's bleeding cash. She's been running a shell game to distract everyone." Marina's expression moved from surprise to a kind of pity I admire in her. She can see humanity even in those trying to harm us. "Are you going to use this?" she asked. I shook my head. "Not directly. That's petty and makes me look vindictive. But if she's desperate, she'll overreach. I want to be ready. 23 years in intel taught me the best tactic isn't a blunt attack. It's pressure that makes the other side panic and blunder while you document everything. Over the next week, I made small legal moves meant to remind Connie this was my land. I parked my truck prominently, washed it until it shone, installed a compliant flagpole 6 feet from the property line and raised the flag with military routine, and placed a decorative boulder visible from her kitchen. Every change was permitted and lawful, just unmistakable reminders that I wasn't leaving. Within days, she was pacing, agitated, and loud on the phone. Marina watched me grill one evening and warned, You're poking the bear. I flipped the chicken and said, I'm giving her rope. We both knew desperate people doubled down. 2 days after the flag went up, Marcus arrived with beer and news. Yolanda Sims and Gil Farnsworth wanted in. Connie had targeted them too. Yolanda's trampoline, Gil's memorial flagpole. We met at my kitchen table with Marina taking notes and built a plan, document, organize, and strike precisely. The pattern was clear. Connie targeted people who didn't fit her ideal: blue-collar workers, imperfect lawns, darker skin, older veterans. We play by the book and use the HOA rules against her. Step 1. File a complaint with the Colorado Secretary of State about HOA financial irregularities. Lynette had told me board members can be removed for self-dealing. Marcus volunteered to file, so my name wouldn't be front and center. Step 2. Petition for a special HOA meeting. 20% of homeowners required, meaning 10 signatures. We already had 4 in my kitchen. Gil and others promised more. Step 3. Prepare a facts-only presentation for the meeting, laying out the mismanagement and calling for a recall. Step 4. Invite the Pinewood Gazette. Yolanda had a media contact. Gil asked quietly if it would work, worn down by the notion that after fighting one war, he'd have to fight another at home. It will, I said. Connie counts on fear and fatigue. Once someone pushes back, it collapses. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He projected it, steady and unblinking. Point of order. She's lying. And everyone in this room knows it. A ripple of gasps moved through the folding chairs like wine through dry grass. Dale fumbled with the gavel, tapping it twice with no confidence behind the blows. Connie's composure cracked, her face flushed crimson, hands trembling as they clutched the podium's edge. Excuse me, she snapped, voice pitched high, brittle. I'm a volunteer who has dedicated. Marcus stepped fully into the aisle. Dedicated? You mean the $1,200 paid to your husband's firm without board approval? Or the $8,400 in administrative expenses nobody can explain? A low murmur swelled. Heads turned. Eyes shifted. People who had arrived neutral were now leaning forward. Connie opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. You don't understand the legal necess. Legal? Marcus barked a hollow laugh. I deliver mail for a living, Connie. But even I know nonprofits can't funnel money to board members' families. You want to talk legal? Let's talk felony. Dale's gavel hit the table again, harder this time. Marcus, please. You'll have your... No, Dale. You had your chance. Marcus didn't look away from Connie. We've been quiet because we hoped you'd fix it. But you didn't. You looked away and hoped it would all blow over. Connie's jaw was clenched so tightly her words came out clipped. This is slander. You people don't have the slightest idea. I stood then, not fast, deliberate. The room followed me with their eyes. It's not slander if it's documented, I said. I held up the spiral-bound dossier. Every dollar, every violation, every false report, every incident of harassment. I placed one copy on the table in front of her with the same calm finality I'd used laying down evidence in field interrogations. Your words disappear from Facebook, Connie. But paper doesn't vanish. Deputy Krause shifted in the back, arms crossed, watching everything. Connie laughed, too loud, too sharp. This is a circus. You people are being manipulated by... By who? Yolanda's voice cut in from the left side of the room. She stood, arms folded. By the aggressive military man from your fake Facebook account? More gasps. Several heads swiveled toward Connie. She went very still. Yolanda held up printed screenshots. You thought deleting it would make it go away. Garrett finally dropped his phone, face drained. He knew it was over. Connie tried one last line of defense, the martyrdom route. Everything I did was to protect this neighborhood. Our standards. Our safety. Our standards. Gil rose slowly, leaning on his cane. You filed 6 complaints against my flagpole. I lost friends in that war. That flag carries names. You don't get to lecture me about standards. Silence spread thick as concrete. I turned to Dale. Article 8, Section 4 of the bylaws. Any board member may be removed by majority vote of the homeowners present. We have quorum. Dale looked at me, then at Connie, then at the packed room. He didn't gavel this time. He just nodded. Motion to remove board president Constance Riddell, I said. I second, Marcus added. Hands rose. Dozens. Almost unanimous. Connie stood frozen, eyes wide and glassy. Not enraged now, shattered. Marina slipped her hand into mine. Because this wasn't victory out of spite. It was something quieter. Something stronger. It was reclaiming home. You've spent 4 years targeting anyone who doesn't fit your personal image of this neighborhood, and we're done pretending it's anything else. Dale looked at me, uncertain, but I remained calm as I stood. Mr. Hartwick, you call this meeting. The floor is yours. I walked to the front, carrying a cardboard box filled with spiral-bound dossiers, and began passing them out row by row. The room was silent except for the turning of pages and hushed gasps of realization. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Vance Hartwick, U.S. Army Reserve, I said, standing with my hands loosely behind my back out of long-ingrained habit. I've served this country for 23 years. I moved to Pinewood Estates 8 months ago because I wanted peace after decades in war zones. Instead, my family has been harassed. My wife's job was threatened. My property vandalized. All because one person decided my truck and my profession didn't fit her standards. I clicked the remote, and a timeline appeared behind me, starting with the so-called welcome packet Connie gave us, highlighting vehicle restrictions, and moving through false police reports, code complaints, anonymous letters, a hospital report about Marina, and finally photos of my slashed tires from last week. This isn't about enforcing rules, I said, moving to the next slide showing fabricated Facebook posts. This is about abuse of power. The room was utterly still. People studied the dossiers, glancing at the screen and then at Connie, whose face drained of color. I advanced to the financial records slide, $8,400 in mysterious administrative fees and a $1,200 payment to her husband's struggling law firm. The bylaws require board members to disclose payments to family and call for a conflict of interest vote. According to the published minutes, no such vote occurred. That means funds were redirected without authorization. This is slander, Connie stammered. Garrett, do something. But Garrett wouldn't meet her eyes. He stared at his phone and muttered, Connie, stop. Please. Just stop. Whispers rippled through the crowd as neighbors compared documents and connected they'd all since but never fully seen. I raised my hand, and the room fell quiet again. I filed a formal complaint with the Colorado Secretary of State's nonprofit division this morning. An audit is coming. If they find what I believe they will, there will be consequences. But that's not why we're here. You elected a board to serve the community. Instead, they've served themselves, turning rules into weapons. Marcus has been targeted. Gil, Yolanda, the Montoya family on Spruce. It ends tonight. I paused. I moved for an immediate recall of the entire board, with elections to be held within 30 days. A woman I'd never spoken to raise her hand. I second. Dale, visibly shaken, followed procedure. No one offered discussion. All in favor. 38 hands rose. Connie stood abruptly, grabbed her purse, and stormed out with Garrett trailing after her. The metal door slammed like a gavel, final and undeniable. After the meeting, as people lingered in the parking lot, a reporter, Jenna Carlson, approached me. What do you want people to understand about tonight? She asked. I considered it. HOAs aren't inherently bad. They have a purpose. But unchecked power corrupts. When board members start settling personal grudges instead of serving residents, homeowners need to stand up, ask questions, demand transparency. She asked if my military training shaped my approach. I shook my head. This wasn't about rank. It was about refusing to be bullied. Anyone could have done this. It just takes effort and belief that truth matters. She snapped a photo of me with Marina, Marcus, Gil, and Yolanda under the streetlights, exhausted but relieved. I knew it would land in the local paper, maybe inspire someone else dealing with their own tyrant. The following week, elections drew neighbors who had never attended a meeting. Marcus became president with 42 votes. Yolanda took treasurer. Gil became secretary, the very people Connie had harassed now leading the board she once controlled. They offered me a position, but I declined. I told them I just wanted to drink coffee on my porch without drama. Marcus laughed and said that was exactly why they wanted me. But he understood. 3 weeks later, the state audit confirmed everything. $8,400 undocumented, $1,200 in unauthorized payments, and a formal recommendation for reimbursement and referral to local prosecutors. 2 days after the report went public, Connie and Garrett listed their home, selling it $30,000 below, asking just to get out before foreclosure proceedings resumed. I never pursued charges for the vandalism. The record was enough. Future employers or boards would find it. The new leadership abolished the ridiculous fines Connie had championed and redirected the HOA's efforts to real community projects, quarterly barbecues, a holiday light celebration with no judging, and a genuine neighborhood watch focused on safety, not surveillance. Marcus proposed the Pinewood Unity Scholarship, $500 annually for a student pursuing public service. The first fundraiser, a pancake breakfast, drew 43 families and raised $2,100. I found myself behind a griddle flipping pancakes while Marina poured coffee. Children played soccer in the field, and the scent of maple syrup drifted through laughter. For the first time since moving here, it felt like a neighborhood, not a battleground. 2 years later, Yolanda's daughter won that scholarship and enrolled in nursing school. Watching Yolanda cry tears of pride reminded me why all of this mattered, not to defeat a bully, but so decent people could live without fear. 6 months after everything settled, my son graduated from West Point. At the ceremony, he pulled me aside. "Dad," he said, "when Connie was posting about you and I called worried, you told me courage isn't loud. It's patient. It lets truth speak for itself." I think about that every day. That may have been the proudest moment of my life. We hosted dinner afterward, Marina cooking, our daughter home from college. Marcus and his family came. Gil, Yolanda, and her daughter. Even the new couple who had bought Connie's house, kind people with a newborn who'd already asked to join Neighborhood Watch. My truck sat in the driveway, washed, untouched, unnoticed, exactly as it always should have been. Later that evening, while washing dishes, Marina asked if I truly meant what I told the paper, that anyone could do what I did. I dried a plate and nodded. The only thing I had was stubbornness and a filing system. Everything else, public records, bylaws, documentation, is available to anyone willing to look. She smiled, kissed my cheek. "You know," she said, "Gil's neighbor is facing an eminent domain fight. Developer trying to force him off his land for a strip mall." I raised an eyebrow. "That's so." She laughed. She knew that tone. I was already considering what I knew about eminent domain and who I could call. "Can't help yourself, can you?" she said. I shrugged. Somebody has to stand up to bullies. Might as well be someone who knows how. So if you're fighting your own HOA nightmare, a board member drunk on authority, a neighbor with a clipboard and a grudge, share your story. The worst one gets featured next week. Maybe we can help. Because no one should feel fear where they live. If you enjoy seeing bullies outmaneuvered by people who won't back down, stick around. I've got more coming every Tuesday. Quiet professionalism beats loud tyranny every time. See you next week.